Welcome to Spartan Theology. Today's video is part of a series I'm going to be doing going through Chris Keith's book, Jesus Against the Scribal Elite. And like I just said, this video is part of a series. So I'm going to be going through the book in several parts. I'm trying to split up the videos by chapter, but I may combine a couple chapters. I'm not exactly sure. I'll be releasing these as I record them. So can't say for sure which if I'll combine any chapters, but I may. I just wanted to throw that out there. But mainly they'll be broken up. Each video will go over one of the chapters of the book. And I'm trying to go through the book in some pretty good detail while also keeping the videos around 20 to 40 minutes, just so you can know what to expect. And the goal of this is to be a resource for people who both haven't read the book, so like I said, I'll be providing a good bit of detail, but also if you have read the book or you're currently reading the book, I hope this will be a good resource to kind of go along with your reading. And so why did I choose this book? Yeah, I chose this book because, one, I really enjoyed reading it last year, and I think the way it's written just really has a lot of good reasons. It lends itself good to a review like this. It goes over a specific topic that not a lot of people maybe have thought about, but it also is good for providing a lot of background information, which will also be nice for sort of a review and something to go along my channel. I think a lot of people will enjoy both reading the book and hopefully will enjoy my review videos. Like I said, the book's about it is 6 chapters long, so you can expect, and an introduction. This video is just me covering the introduction. So you can expect about 5 to 6 more videos after this one, and I'm working to try and release them weekly, so you can expect one video per week until we finish. And just a little bit about the author, Chris Keith, before we get started. Dr. Chris Keith is a research professor of New Testament and early Christianity at St. Mary's in London. Has written a number of books, including the Gospel as Manuscript, Jesus Against the Scribal Elite, the book we're talking about here, Jesus' Literacy, The Pericope of Adultery, and a few others. And if you're interested in this and you haven't seen it already, I did an interview with Dr. Keith on my channel with my buddy Elvir a little while back, so you can check that out. I'll put a link to that video in the description. But it was a really great interview, and I'm actually talking to Dr. Keith about possibly coming on the channel again, so that should be interesting. He has some pretty interesting stuff coming up. But so with all that said, kind of introduction, housekeeping stuff, we can get right into the actual book review. So first, to kind of set things up, I just wanted to read a bit from the opening paragraph of the book. I think Dr. Keith does a great job, obviously, setting things up. So, how did the controversy between Jesus and the scribal elite begin? We know how it ended. In Jerusalem, Rome involved, Jesus' battered body hanging on a cross. But how did it start? What first put Jesus on the radar of the Jewish authorities? What made Jesus unlike thousands and thousands of first century Palestinian Jews, a threat to Jewish leaders? This book argues that an answer to that question must go beyond typical understandings, such as Jesus' alternate views on Torah or his miracle working, and consider his status as a teacher. So, as you can see, this introduction paragraph really sets things up for what's to follow perfectly. I know for myself, before reading this book and really thinking about the conflict that led to the crucifixion deeply, it was kind of a given in my mind that what got Jesus in trouble and ultimately killed was something to do with either his views on scripture or his miracle working. But in this book, Chris Keith argues for a much different understanding. He argues that it was mainly the way that Jesus taught and the fact that he challenged the status quo of who was qualified to be a teacher in the first place that caused the conflict and that in the end got Jesus killed on the cross. So next, Jesus takes a bit of a look at Matthew 23 and how this passage lays a foundation for a lot of what he goes on to discuss later in the book. So as we do that, I just want to pull up a bit of Matthew chapter 23 that Dr. Keith cites in his book and kind of read from that. So, then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, do whatever they teach you, and follow it. But do not do as they do, For they do not practice what they teach. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on the shoulders of others. But they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their broad and their fringes long. They love to have the place of honor at banquets and the best seats in the synagogues, and to be greeted with respect in the marketplace, and to have people call them rabbi. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all students. And call no one your father on earth, for you have one Father, the one in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. So, Chris Keith points out that this passage gives us a lot of information about the identity of the Jewish teachers and where Jesus stood among them. We can see that the author of Matthew's Gospel, Jesus saw himself so far and above the other teachers that no one else even deserved the title of teacher. And as you continue reading on in Matthew 23, Jesus continues to offer a blistering critique of the teacher that he was in conflict with. Next, Keith goes on to lay out the central argument of the book and how the book will be structured. So the idea that Jesus was in conflict with the religious authorities of the time is not really a controversial claim. But Dr. Keith's argument is that in addition to, but distinct from, the content of his teaching and the style with which Jesus taught, Jesus' very status as a teacher was what made him controversial. The Scribal authorities' central problem was that, from their perspective, Jesus did not have the right to be teaching in the first place. So, like all that said, you can really see that, it's really that Jesus's low status, class status, led to this conflict. They didn't understand why, the authorities didn't really understand why Jesus even felt he could teach people. And they didn't see him really, he kind of didn't go through the ranks, like as we see today. And so they just didn't feel like it wasn't so much about exactly what he was saying. It was just more that he didn't really have the right to be saying it in the first place at all. So, and lastly, before I end part 1 of this series, so that was just, like I said, just mainly just going over the introduction, laying out what these videos will be like, a little bit about what the book is about. So I just want to talk a bit about how Dr. Keith describes the structure of the book. He makes the point that Jesus was not a scribal literate authority, but due to the way he taught people perceived Jesus as a member of the literate class on some occasions. Yeah, this is important. The way he describes it, because some people bring up, the passage in Luke, and we'll get to that, where he reads from the scroll of Isaiah. So obviously Jesus was a literate member of the class, a member of the literate class. But what Dr. Keith argues, and like I said, we'll get more into this in the chapter, so I don't want to, don't think he doesn't give a lot of supporting reasons, because I'm not giving them here. But he argues that it's not that Jesus was a member of the literate class, it's that sort of the way he taught and what led to this conflict led some people to think he was a member of the literate class, the scribal authorities, and some people realized he wasn't. So it was kind of a confusing thing, and like I said, we'll spell all this out later on. But to end this video, I just want to give a bit of a preview of what we'll be discussing in the next video. So chapter 1 lays the groundwork for asking what kind of teacher Jesus was by first presenting what kinds of teachers there were in Jesus' time. So generally speaking, there were authoritative members of the minority scribal elite class who had received a literate education, and then there was, everyone else. So was Jesus a member of this minority literate class or not? So that's what we're going to be getting into. Like I said, chapter 1 will just be talking about, what it means to be a teacher, what were these literate teachers, what sort of the society was like at the time. So that's kind of all we have for the introduction and just kind of introducing this series as a whole. So really appreciate you watching this. If you made it to the end, I really, really appreciate it. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions. If you've read the book or you haven't read the book, I'll be sure to try and answer any questions, or if they're good to maybe, I'll probably start as I'm saying this, I had this idea too. If you leave any questions below, I'll probably have a part at the beginning of the next video where I address any relevant comments and stuff, because I think probably a lot of people have the same questions. So that'll be interesting. But without rambling too much on it, like I said, I really appreciate you watching this. If you could, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not. Like I said, there's going to be more parts of this series coming up, so if you're subscribed, you'll definitely see those. And yeah, be on the lookout for the review of chapter 1 coming next week. Really appreciate you watching. Thank you.